How great would it be to actually own your own data on a fully safeguarded platform? Well, that day has arrived. Pac Global is set to launch a revolutionary product that takes storage to a whole new level. According to Don Tapscott, author of Blockchain Revolution and the founder of the Blockchain Research Institute, there are two types of centralized networks: those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. Centralized networks store all of your personal data, including your date of birth and social security number, in a single or centralized location. The problem with this is that bad actors know where these locations are, and there is an endless quest to gain access to your data. Some of these networks include Visa, MasterCard, the credit rating agencies such as Experian and Equifax, Dropbox, and the Apple iCloud. These networks are interwoven into our daily lives, and unfortunately, we've all experienced our bank sending us a new debit or credit card because our data was compromised at a retail location. Recent examples of hacked centralized networks include Yahoo, with the largest data breach to date, the Apple iCloud, Facebook, Uber, and too many others to mention. The good news is that today is a new day. Your data will be yours again, extremely safe and significantly less expensive to store it than what you're used to paying. Pac Global will be launching their storage solution that leverages the power of blockchain, all on a decentralized massive global network. So the time is now to take back your data, all powered by Pac Global.
And we are live. Welcome, Rachel Wolfson, and welcome, Drew Saunders, to the event.
Thank you, Ross.
Ross.
Appreciate it. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, Drew. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's finally cooling down in Arizona. Seems like you got a sunny day over in Hawaii right now.
Nice. Yes, it's a beautiful sunny day. The weather here has been amazing. So
That's good to hear.
fortunate to be here. Yeah. And thank you again for taking the time to, join us live on Twitter today. This is so exciting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love doing these things, and I love working with Ross too. And first time with you, so I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Well, I think we should first start off by talking a little bit about the history behind Pac Global, so our audience can just kind of understand that.
Sure thing. Yeah. Pac Global is a masternode project. Its code base is based off of Dash. A lot of people are familiar with Dash. And the reason why we use Dash as a code base is because they did a really good job of showcasing how a masternode network can expand if properly motivated. Obviously, they were the first ones to introduce masternodes, and it's done very well for them. And the reason why we use that is because over the history of Pac, we've struggled with finding a proper use case as far as introducing a large network and why. Why is it so important? And so over the past couple years, there's been some ups and downs as there has been with any upcoming project or just trying to sort out the organization and make things go correct. And for us, over the last couple years, we've really toned in and focused on decentralizing our network, growing our network, trying to help people understand why we do that and why we want that. And it's really proven useful to be able to have little educational pieces with people here and there. Liz Sam on our team, she does a great job of really breaking down blockchain for those that may not have a lot of technological know-how of how blockchain works, and really breaks it down for them to understand. And so that's what we've kind of tied in over what we've been doing, is trying to make everything as easy as possible, to where if someone's using blockchain, they don't know that they're using blockchain, or that they don't have to know. And I like using the same comparison as far as like when I use my debit card somewhere. I don't necessarily know exactly how money goes from A to B, but I know that it works, and I know that I don't have to worry about it not working. Usually. So that's something that we really took to heart for everything that we release. And so over the past 2 years, that's what we've been, dealing with, is, coming up with solutions and how we can do that, and brings us to where we are now, as to where our network's at roughly 10,000 nodes. Some of them are considered POS inactive, but majority of them, at least 8,000 of them roughly, are active. And that's just what you're going to expect from a decentralized network, where everyone in the entire globe is responsible for supporting the network reliably. And so far, it's been proven to show that it can be done, and it has been done.
Got it. And you guys are live in 30 countries now. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's actually over 30 countries. It's a rough estimate just based off of the IP addresses of where full nodes are located. But yeah, over 30 countries globally spread out. We have a large amount of them over in Europe. A large amount of them are hosted in the United States. But you'll find pockets here and there where nodes will start being supported in countries that you might not even know that your specific chain or your project has even made a difference. So it's really cool to see that, especially something where it's open and open source downloadable and anyone can support it if they want to. And then you'll see these countries pop up to realize that, wow, your network is growing. It's not just local. It's not just where you are. It's expanding globally. And that's what we're trying to reach for.
Right. So clearly there's a large element. This is completely decentralized. So can you kind of discuss why decentralization is important for this industry?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the number one thing, in my opinion, that needs to be expanded for any product that wants to be released. In our industry, especially because when you look at Bitcoin, the creation of Bitcoin, and how it really opened up how the financial system can be done in a decentralized manner. You see a lot of projects going after that as well, and they're proving successful. Of how if it's a decentralized network, it's a lot harder, if not impossible, to hack or to disrupt or to mess with, because you're not really relying on any central device, any central location, where we can see a lot of things in this world today, even though we are pretty technically advanced to this point. The current systems that we use for payment networks or just the internet in general, a lot of data is stored in central locations. Payments are ran through central locations, and as time continues to go on, people, and I'm going to just say the word hackers, find out these locations, and it just makes it an ongoing and expensive um, time to be able to put money towards security, trying to stop hackers from getting in, constantly, coming up with different ways of where you could back up data just in case something were to happen, and it just becomes an annoying, never-ending process, and it just keeps getting more expensive and more expensive, which you can kind of see if you would pay attention to the amount of money that these large companies then have to charge their customers for storing their data, or transactions fees that, in a sense, we've seen in blockchain isn't needed, but transaction fees are needed in networks such as Visa, et cetera, because they have to pay for all of these different infrastructures that they are using to try and keep your information or your data safe. So decentralization is really taking that and taking that responsibility away from the provider, really, and really putting it amongst the users. That if you want it to be safe, if you want it to be decentralized, if you want privacy, you have that power in your hands. So that's why it's our job to try and show people that in a way that people would understand, and then in a sense, then they start using it and realizing there is a better alternative for making sure that either their payments, their finances, or their information they want to store is safe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, those are all very good points. And with that in mind, let's talk about the applications that have been built on Pac Global, on the network in the past 12 to 18 months, just so we can get a better idea of the use case there.
Absolutely. I mean, we built some applications to try and key in on the features as far as if someone were wanting to use Pac as a store of value, or if they want to transfer Pac. I mean, that's something that a lot of blockchains just have the capability of doing just because cryptocurrency is built that way. If there's a value for it, people will recognize it. But what we try to focus on and what we've been building our product on over the past months is really focusing on the server aspect of our network, which is our masternode layer. And I don't want to get crazy technical into that, but why it's so important that we looked into that is because, master nodes are considered full nodes. Bitcoin has full nodes, Ethereum has full nodes, all the large top projects, they all have full nodes that carry a complete copy of the blockchain and everything that goes on. Well, for that to happen, that means that they have to be accessible, reliable, to be able to copy all the things that happen. So 24/7 reliability. If something were to happen to these nodes, that their maintenance is proper and that they're taken care of within an acceptable time. And that's something that we already have established with our masternode layer, just for the chain to act as it needs to act. We are the first POS coin to launch with deterministic masternodes and chain locks. And for all that to happen and work congruently, it needs to have a system in place to make sure that the servers are active and the servers are reliable. And so that's why when we looked at that, we realized, okay, well, if we were to build on top of this and use this as the layer that we build into, not necessarily using the native Pac token for everything that we want to build with it, but if we can build into the decentralized aspect of the server, we can add all these different types of use cases from essentially any project really that is in need of a decentralized network, is in need of a data storage, is in need of a means of transaction, whether it's monetary or not. So that's why we used IPFS, and why that really brought us together as a development team when we were trying to figure out this common problem that we kept reoccurring, was how to do this. Blockchain isn't really built to hold data in a large scale of form. It'll bloat the chain. It'll just become a nuisance over time. But IPFS is perfectly built to be a direct comparison to HTTP, which we all know is the internet. And how the HTTP works is, I go to a website, it'll direct my server to the server that's hosting the website. IPFS, it does the same thing, but instead of it being a one-on-one server, it really performs the best when there's multiple servers being able to be used as the gateway, being able to reproduce or share the data instead of relying on a central location. So if we look, when we looked at Pac Global and realized, okay, we have at least 8,000 nodes that are active, 2,000 more are on their way or just in maintenance because of individuals hosting their nodes. If we have that large of a network already, why don't we just build IPFS across that? We don't have to worry about people picking up IPFS and supporting it when they're already deciding to support Pac Global. And so in our thought process is, okay, that makes really good sense. We want to allow that to where we can grow a huge IPFS infrastructure, but at the same time provide a use case while we're doing it where people can see the utility that the masternode layer can offer, not just to IPFS, but it can be offered to any project as well if that was the need that they needed. And the way that we've worked into it is where IPFS can be supported by Pac Global servers now, without having to change your server, without having to upgrade your server, without needing more memory, et cetera, other than what we already recommend. And that's something that we're proud of, and we've been working on over the past couple months to where we can now showcase a product built on this network. And the network that we used, the network that we decided to call it, really huge shout out to our development team who've been working nonstop on this, hours, nights. They're based over in Europe. I'm in Arizona. You're in Hawaii. So even us just getting together, we know the time differences, right? And so it's really impressive to see developers from around the world work together from different time zones to be able to bring a network like this together. And so we decided to call our IPFS network the YAN network. The YAN network. One of our developers, his name is Yan, and he's done a very tremendous job in helping out with a lot of the things that we've done. So that's why we decided to use that as our name to showcase our very first product across the Pac Global Masternode servers with IPFS.
Wow. So the product is called the Yen Network, and that's based off the developer's name. That's so cool.
Yeah, well, let me reiterate. Our network is the YAN network, and then the product that we're going to showcase in a little bit, a little sneak peek of what we can do, we've decided to call that YAN DNA.
Okay, got it.
And the DNA,
cool. That's awesome.
DNA is acronym. It stands for Decentralized Node Assembly. So we just decided to use that, a little play on words for ourselves because he's a developer in our team, but at the same time, it's bilingual. It means a lot of different things, but it's mainly a shout out for our developers who's put a lot of work into this, because I feel our developers in this space in general, in blockchain industry, a lot of this stuff just gets overlooked or expected just because they're so good at what they do. And we really want to try and bring that back and realize that, all the things that are being built are because of these like-minded individuals, these developers who are able to work together.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a very cool name and concept. And I think that, just talking about that, we can even talk about the importance of open source here and why that's so important for the blockchain community. Do you have any thoughts that you want to, share on that?
Well, absolutely. Not only is it beneficial for growing a network, whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to just be Pac Global being open source, but anything really. If it's open source, it allows it to grow quicker. but it also is really showing the team's involvement with other people, as far as, you know, allowing others to maybe find bugs or maybe find things that they can improve on your network. And if you have that kind of communication style already accepted amongst your developers that are working on your project, those that get introduced to your project and maybe find a bug or maybe find ways to improve it, they already have that language to be able to talk to each other and improve things. And that's how, you know, one thing that Pac Global has gone through in the past is, you know, we've maybe had things that have pop up, little bugs here and there, things that have maybe affected different partners or products that we have built, and developers would come to us and say, hey, here's a way that we can fix that, or let's make this better. And some of those developers are on our team now. So it's, you know, it just makes sense to do that, to where you're just opening up to a grander audience, not only for usability, but just security of your product and improving it.
Right, definitely. Speaking of the product, I'm curious to know who's the target audience? Who will be using this? Is it consumers, you know, enterprises, and how will they use it?
So we have two different methods that we're planning on using IPFS. And to answer your question, it's kind of both. I mean, we want to target both audiences, but there's different questions to be answered when it comes to what product is being released on an IPFS network. And the reason for that is because if you know, if I say out loud a decentralized file server that anyone can host anything with no penalty, or there's no secure as far as like what's being put on there, there's a lot of questions that could be asked as far as illegal content, illegal activity, you know, things like that. So when you start opening stuff up to the public, there are questions that need to be asked as far as who's accessing it, what's being uploaded, and then if it is being uploaded, who's at risk for being responsible. And so as far as enterprise use for IPFS, we have plans as far as, you know, using privatized master nodes that are supported on Pac Global, obviously, but their ownership is known. Their ownership is trusted. We know exactly as far as who's going to be accessing it, not their files, not their information. IPFS works in a way where it's with the UI that we built in on top of it, everything's encrypted. Files can't even be returned by anyone unless you have the keys and all that. So there's a way that enterprise can work that way, to where, okay, we know who's using it and we know that the servers are going to be reliable, and we can basically guarantee that. And then when we have the other side of it is, okay, if we want to do a public version of this, we can, and we can support that as well with the same nodes that are supporting a private version of the network. But there's just some questions that need to be answered first before we release that live and public, because we want to make sure that everyone's safe and everyone does act responsibly when they use it. A lot of, you know, I go back to the same reoccurring, you know, conversation that I have with people whenever I just talk about blockchain in general, where they, you know, they'll give those little hits out there of, oh, Bitcoin has been used for illegal activity, or, you know, whatever the things pop up. And the same thing, you know, well, so does cash. Cash could be used in illegal activity too. In reality, anything could be. You just have to have the proper steps in place to make sure that whoever's using it, whoever's accessing it, is being responsible. And so that's, you know, key number one for us when we want to release something to the public is, are they going to be responsible with it? And are they going to then have to be responsible for their own actions instead of bogging down an entire network because of one person's actions? So that's why, you know, we're aimed at doing both enterprise and public. Our first release is going to be specifically for enterprise use, just so that it's a lot easier for us to have more security on that first. But absolutely, a public release version of IPFS to where people can access it, people can store their information, be their own backup. I mean, there's been many things of social media closing down or being bought out where they've lost, you know, people have lost, whether it matters to you personally or anyone, they've lost their followers, they've lost their information, they've lost all the pictures that they've maybe uploaded to, you know, as an example, if Instagram would go down tomorrow, how many people have information on there that just don't have it backed up on their phone or don't think that they need to? There was a scare of TikTok closing, things like that. And, you know, that's super popular in 2020 now, TikTok. And what happened if that were just to go away? All the information, all those videos, all memories, you know, all those things that you put on the internet that you're trying to share with people can and has been taken away from people just because of the system that it's currently built on. It's centralized, and you don't really own what you're putting on their servers. A lot of people don't read the terms and conditions of what you're signing. I know I don't, not every time, but it's one of those things that you are really signing off that if you don't have access to the data that's on those servers, if you aren't the one that's supplying it, you don't own it. And it gets
Right.
scary. I mean, there's been massive hacks where it's either personal information, whether it be pictures of celebrities being leaked on the internet, or whether it's you find out, you get a call that the local Walmart by your house has been breached and your information was taken. That happened not too far from my home, to where I had to change all my information just because I went to a store that saved my information on a server, and it got hacked. And that's something that this product can really impact everyone's life if we release the products that are specific for their needs. And I feel like this product that we're releasing, it can be done in all ways. It can be used in all ways. It's kind of just a, we call it a 5-in-1 tool almost, where it's a one product, but you can be used it in really 20 different ways, not just 5. And as we keep going down, we'll keep adding to it and pinpoint where we can improve things and make it more accessible. We've already talked about linking your social media to where it's an automatic backup, or just other things. But in general, it's just to be a introduction to a better storage environment than what we're currently used to.
Right, definitely. I mean, and you covered very well the benefits of decentralized storage networks versus the centralized ones that the world is using today, basically. But I do think, because it's you are starting with the enterprise first, obviously privacy is so important there, especially when blockchain is, this network in particular, is open and transparent. But it sounds like you guys have some good privacy techniques built in there to ensure that enterprises would want to use this network.
Yeah, I mean, blockchain itself already has the security and privacy built in, as far as how Bitcoin works itself. It's not anonymous. It's an anonymity unless your address is known. And what we're trying to do with our side of things using IPFS is, IPFS doesn't really have a lot of security built in from ground base. Like, it's basically from just looking at it from a standard point of view, it's just an architecture for a database to be able to connect different servers. So that's why it worked perfectly with our Pac Global Master Network, because we have all those servers active and accessible to connect them together if people choose to support that. And but the part that it doesn't pinpoint on is the anonymity. It doesn't pinpoint on as far as encrypting your transaction. And when I say transaction, I mean the point from uploading data to being stored on a chain. So that's what I mean by transaction. It doesn't encrypt it, doesn't do any of that from its base point. So that's what our developers had to work together on, was to make sure, okay, we want to make sure that if someone does want to make something, a file or a picture or data, whatever they want to store on their private, they have the availability to do that, and it's backed up by coding to where it's proven that it's encrypted, that you can't get it back unless you have the encryption key. There'll also be the other option where if you want to upload something and you have friends that you have that are also using the platform, just like Facebook, Instagram, etc., you can add them as friends, and they can just see what you uploaded too, if they're in they're in your friend group. So you have to do both, to where you are taking notice of the needs of some people for privacy. Some people just don't care about that stuff. But we wanted to make it possible, because like you said, in enterprise, there's a lot of different industries that it's required for any data storage, medical, taxes, things like that people need secure storage for. There are specific guidelines that have to be followed just to make sure that it has at least enough security to do that thing, or the capability. Medical data alone, you have to store information for 7 to 10 years per not customer, but per patient, per individual. And that takes not only a lot of resources, but it takes a lot of security to know that your files that are going to be stored for 7 years or longer are going to be secure. And so that's one thing that we had to tackle when going towards the enterprise way.
Right, definitely. Very good points. Are you guys doing a POC with any enterprises right now? I mean, obviously, if you can't mention it, that's totally fine. But just curious, like if that's being conducted, and if so, what type of enterprise? Is it in the medical industry, or supply chain management?
Yeah, we're definitely working together with a project called Radiologex. Nothing defined, nothing concrete as of now. It's more as far as just testing what we're working on. A lot of the developers that actually I work with, I also work with them on some of the things that they develop too. So they're very on par with what is needed as far as using a blockchain database for storage. And so it really gave us the insight of how to design this to have that in mind already. So that's something that we're trying to, we use as a backbone and kind of as a guideline when we're designing, okay, what we need to do and how much security we need. We know that the medical field needs this. We know that if we are to partner with or we are to be used as a utility network or a storage network for them, that we have to check certain guidelines. There's going to be certain guidelines requested and asked, and there has to be a company front to be able to answer those questions and to confirm them. That's why the Pac Global Holdings LLC exists, is because unfortunately, sometimes for you to deal with different partners or deal with companies, you have to have a company face to have those conversations, to be that reassuring, this, our code works, the product works, etc. So we do rely on the community a ton as far as using the product, getting the product out there, showing their friends, family, etc., and then using it. But there does have to be a company face to deal with strategic partnerships, etc. One thing that we actually just announced yesterday is we announced a strategic partnership with Tron, because Tron actually, BTFS, BitTorrent, that's part of them as well, which is very similar to what we're developing and the product that we're releasing, the Yan DNA. I keep doing that. It's Yan DNA. And BTFS is actually their take on IPFS and their structure of data storing and stuff like that. And so we got into a conversation showing them what we're building, and they showed us what they have. And we decided that it'd be a good idea if we were to collaborate our ideas, because our coding of how we did them are different. But if we were to combine them or just support BTFS alone across our network, it would not only grow their network like immediately by 20% or more, but it also just adds that extra decentralization, that increase in capacity for storage, because more servers equals more capacity to store stuff. Each server provides resources for the data storage. So yeah, I mean, we have partnerships lined up. We want to work with other projects along the within the space. We have conversations already going with a couple of them, because people do understand and realize the value of having such a large network, not necessarily specifically only for payments, because that already exists. You have Bitcoin, you have Ripple, you have all the different comparisons, but just to have that network alone accessible to tap into, just to give yourself immediate decentralization, immediate capacity for data storage, and just immediate everything as far as a project starting from the ground up, or a project like Tron, which is, we all know is a very established project, successful, and what they offer and what they do. They still even see the value of a large network that they can tap into to help decentralize and grow their own network. So we definitely have some things in the work and different projects that we're going to be working with moving forward.
Right, definitely. Before we go into the product demo, I just want to ask you a little bit about the role of the Pac Global Token, because we haven't really talked about that. Can you just talk about like the incentives there? And
Sure.
I guess it's also being used as a form of payment as well at some places, or
Yeah. So basically, the main role for the Pac native token for the Pac Global chain, what we promote and what we try and have people realize is, as I talked about, the growth of our network. That's the main thing that we focus on. Well, for our network to grow and for masternodes to grow, there has to be a collateralization of Pac tokens. And for us, for our chain, it's 500,000 Pac tokens. The reason for this is purely to give a reason for the person involved in maintaining that server to be reliable to maintain that server. If they weren't tied to it in any way, it doesn't really grow, or it doesn't grow in a I'm trying to think of the word, in a reliable way, that that okay, all these servers, they're going to be connected for 24/7. They're going to be connected for amount of time. Those with a master node, it brings them more inclined to do so, and that alone just grows our network. 500,000 Pac here, 500,000 Pac here. People from across 30 plus countries have decided to do that, and it's proven to grow our network. We're almost at 10,000 nodes. But another way that Pac can be used is just like any other cryptocurrency. If there's a value for it, or if you build it, they will come. if there's a value for it, it can be used as monetary transactions. It can be. We don't promote it that way just because illegally we don't want to like do that stuff, but it can be used. It touts speeds similar, if not faster, than Dash and competitors. Just a lot of the same code base. They perform the same way if the blockchain is performing correctly, and it can be used that way. And with that, if you think of the internet, there's only two main networks that are used for transactions. I'll use that word again, either payment transactions or data transactions. Those are the only two networks that run on the internet, mainly for everything. Amazon, Google, Facebook, anything that has anything to do with having a website or selling something, you need two networks. And so PAC can be used as far as being supportive towards the payment side of the network. But like I said, there's already those different chains and projects out there that exist that have kind of accomplished that already, such as Bitcoin, et cetera, for payments. And so we can tie that in along with the PAC token to be supported on our IPFS network to maybe build something that's similar to the internet we see today, to where instead of transactions happening by inputting your credit or debit card information, you can use any blockchain project really you want, or if you want to use Bitcoin, if you want to use PAC, if you want to use Litecoin, you can. It doesn't really have to be a competition when it comes to that, because I feel this industry is trying to just accomplish a goal. And so we're trying to make that a little easier by combining projects. And we can do that now very efficiently and effectively through our IPFS network on the layer that we use through our Pac Global Masternode network.
Right. Yeah, such good points. I mean, and it's so great to see you guys forming that partnership with Tron, because I think it will add value for both parties, rather than competing with each other to form a partnership. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that was something that I really enjoyed talking to their team about, because just right off the forefront, them giving the time, first of all, to just hear what we had to say was amazing. And then second of all, it wasn't all about competition. It wasn't about, well, we see that your network could be better than ours. It was more, okay, your network has different features that ours doesn't offer. How about we support each other, and then we figure this out down the line to where now BTFS has the same features that your IPFS network shows, or vice versa. Your net, we just decided to grow our network with BTFS on top of your servers. And so, we have different ways that we can help each other, but just being able to talk to a top project like that and realize that, okay, they see the value in what we're doing. It really showed that we're on the right path.
Right. Yeah. Shout out to Justin Sun. He's awesome. So cool. So are we ready to see the demo video that we have for the product? Should we roll that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we ran that, but I will run it again.
Oh, you ran it.
Feel free to keep discussing, and I will launch it again just in case some of our viewers missed that 2-minute video.
Yeah, absolutely. I can kind of like just talk about a little bit based off of that video. I know that we wanted to showcase just the main functions of it, of uploading and downloading information. And if you notice on that on the UI, it doesn't look like blockchain's involved at all. It looks like everything that we're used to. Drag and drop your file or search for your file on your disk or whatever it is, and it just gets uploaded to a regular storage base. That's all it looks like from the eye point of view. But what's really happening behind the scenes is there's over 3,000 servers out there globally spread out, to where if someone's uploading a picture or a file, whatever, it's breaking that picture up into sections that can be hosted on these servers, first of all. And then if it can't, it can be broken up into little smaller pieces to where it can. And all that information is getting spread to one or multiple servers that are globally spread out. So if you think about that, it's it's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to find out what server that just interacted with when there's thousands of them. And then just think, as it continues to grow, it's going to become even more difficult to realize, okay, if I uploaded this information, is it secure? Well, there's thousands of servers out there that it could be on, and it's not just on one, it's on multiple. So that gives you a layer of security right there. And then the downloading part of it, that's something that we had to work on as well, to make sure that it was comparable or competitive, not towards other companies, but towards just the ability, just the speed of downloading something or the speed of uploading something. We don't want it to be something to where, yeah, IPFS is advantageous, but it takes too long, doesn't really, fit my needs. And with the demo that we're showcasing, and this is live, like that, those are real files being uploaded and downloaded, that it does work, and the quality's good, it's quick and clean.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my question is though, the product that you're building and bringing to the world, you're basically competing against major players like Google, Facebook, Instagram, these centralized players. So how do you envision driving mainstream adoption for a product like this when the world is so set? They've got this like centralized mindset. Like, what are the challenges that we need to overcome to say, hey, this is actually a really great solution?
Yeah. No, my answer isn't always a favorite, but that's okay. But my answer to that is I actually really do enjoy the approach that Ripple takes when talking to different financial, basically the approach that Ripple takes, from my understanding, I don't work for Ripple, but from my understanding, is that they've built a service and a product that connects what's already used today to what Ripple can offer. And basically that's what I kind of want to do is, there's so many different systems already out there, like you said, Google, Amazon, et cetera, that already do things their way. It is the majority way of how it's done. It is adopted. And so to go into that headstrong from myself thinking, okay, we're just going to compete with them and just take over, not likely. I mean, it's just not likely, And so what I want to do is to where, if we build this correctly, we can intertwine with those to where, the size of our network, the larger it gets. If they were to add themselves into our network, they just added all the decentralization that I'm talking about and touting as important. They just added it to their network. And so it's kind of the same way as how banks are trying to add blockchain features into theirs without having to replace everything. Because if they had to replace everything, it would take too long, cost way too much money, and they just wouldn't do it. That's why it hasn't been done now. That's why blockchain really isn't used in banks yet, overall, or we don't know about it. And that's how I want it to be for our side of things with data storage. If Google wanted or needed more decentralization or understood the value of what I'm talking about, they don't have to replace everything. They just have to tap into what we're doing. And it makes it,
Yeah.
and that can be done with any company really. And that's the kind of the competition I want for it, is because I don't want it to be a competition, because I know you're not going to win a competition against Google. You're not going to win a competition against Amazon. But you can build something to where they can respect it and they can use it and they can, add it to what they're already doing. So that's kind of my take on it. I know some people don't really like that answer because it kind of, oh, there's still some centralization there or something, but you can't control what other companies decide to do with, what they've done from, when they started till now. And for them to just erase everything and start over is very unlikely to happen, in my opinion. So I want to build
Right.
where they can just tap in.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you 100% because, like, writing about this industry for the past 3.5 years and seeing it grow, and now I see these companies like Mastercard and Visa supporting these smaller crypto startups, and I've spoken with those startups, and they're like, yeah, this is great. They're helping us drive adoption. They're helping us grow. They're helping us do that, this, and that. And so your answer really is, I completely agree with it, that, it's not so much I want to compete with the big players, but maybe we can collaborate somehow to where their influence can actually help your projects grow.
Yeah.
So I think your answer is great.
I mean,
It
that's
makes
why
sense.
that's why we were so open and willing to work with different projects. Like, like Tron, for example, they have BTFS, which is an IPFS solution for data storage. That is as close to a competition as you could get for as far as talking IPFS. But our mentality isn't, okay, we need to compete with them because they can provide a solution, so can we. And for me to honestly sit here and think that, okay, Pac Global, the Yan network, the Yan DNA is going to provide the solution for everything everywhere, that's a huge, shoe to fill. And that's something that I don't think is really necessary when you have all these different providers. You have all these different ways that you could provide storage. And just because we do it doesn't mean that down the line someone else thinks that, hey, that's a great idea, I want to build a network too, and they make it better too. So we want to always keep our options open to collaborate with different projects, improve what they already have, or they in turn can help us improve what we have. But either way, we're accomplishing the same goal as far as having a better tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Before we go into questions from the audience, I just want to ask you, what's in store for the future? What's next? What do you hope to bring to the project moving forward in the next, 3 to 6 months? What are your priorities?
My priorities are, so this product that we're releasing, the Yan DNA, that one is geared towards enterprise private use. We will have the option and the availability for those that we can register to use this application, get it out in front of people. I guess a beta, if you want to call it that. But what I'm wanting to focus on is where we can release this full on publicly and not have any worries about, as far as just anything. I just want it to be out there publicly to where people can use it for their needs, can access a storage, data storage that's comparable to Google, comparable to whatever they already currently use, Apple Cloud, etc., whatever, and then they can access it. Not only use some of the resources that are provided, because the resources are provided by everyone, every individual that has a master node that's running IPFS as well, because it's going to be optional. They don't have to, but if they want to, those resources comes from them. So if someone's accessing those resources, we would like it to be that those people are also contributing at the same time, instead of it just being a use, it's free, whatever. Because we also need to figure out, as far as that, is everything going to be free? And if it's not, who is the person that's being rewarded? Well, Pac Global has the masternodes already that already provides incentive for that. So that already kind of answers that. But then we need to start figuring out, okay, how much individual needs or individual space for data storage does everyone get? Do you get 1 gig? Do I get 1 gig? Does everyone get 1 gig? Well, over time, you're going to need a lot more space. And the only way more space grows is if the network grows. Over these next couple months, we're going to be answering those questions, as far as, okay, how do we get this out to people to where it is safe and we don't have to worry about who's using it or what's being put on there? Like, we have steps in line. One thing that we've thought about implementing, and I don't know if I have this right, but I think it's called Photo DNA. And what it is it's a code from Microsoft, to where it basically runs all the illegal content that's ever been produced or ever been put on the internet, all has its own hash or its own fingerprint. And so we can put that at the front interlay of whenever someone wants to upload something, it immediately, goes off that and says whether or not it's okay or not. And then if it's not, it doesn't get added. But those are just like the little things I'm talking about, that just those extra security measures that we want to add to help people like feel safe.
Definitely, yeah. And I think that's so important, the privacy and the confidentiality, especially when it comes to enterprise use, like that's huge. But it's a work in progress, but just seeing the progress from the blockchain community being done, it's really amazing. And I'm excited. I've seen the space grow in these past years. It's just so wonderful to see the innovation that's been happening. And I'm so excited for you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in a year like this year, with all the craziness that's gone on across the entire globe, this industry has continued to move forward and, put up with all the bruises that it takes.
Right. And that's a whole other topic we can get into later, about how COVID-19 has really, I guess, heightened the need for open blockchain networks. But we'll save that conversation for another day. Cool. Okay. So should we take questions from the audience now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do we have any questions coming in? I think I have a question. Someone asked, why does the size of the network matter for a product such as storage?
Okay. Well, the easiest way that I can answer that is if you're size of your network for storage. Okay, so let's say that you were needing to upload 100 gigabytes of storage. Would you rather do that on one server, or would you rather do that on 3,000 plus or 10,000 plus servers? If you did it on one, you're giving yourself a central attackability, basically. If it can be hacked, it can be figured out right there. Eventually, over time, it would be. There's a quote that all centralized networks are those that have been hacked or those that will be hacked. And that's the truth. I mean, there's always a time length of how long you could take to figure out someone's password, whatever. But instead of going into that, the easier option is, instead of putting it on one, put it on 3,000 or put it on 10,000. And that just adds a decentralization security that you just can't buy. It's impossible to buy. If you bought it, then that means it's still central because you own it all. So it's like,
Right.
that's the main like quick answer for that.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to see if we have any other questions. What about, someone was curious to know any other partnerships in the works besides what you have going with Tron? Can you hint at anything that might be upcoming?
Can't hint on them, but that's the hint in itself.
Uh-huh.
So,
Okay.
so we're
Good to
definitely
know.
working with some other projects, but I don't want to step on any toes too early.
Got it. Okay. What about, and we kind of touched on this, but I don't know if you have any specific stats that you can mention, but how large is the market opportunity for decentralized storage today? How large is that market? Do you have any stats that you can kind of mention or?
Oh man, stats written down. I mean, I can give a rough off of what it is, but if we just think about how blockchain itself is just an introduction to the internet of money. The internet is going to forever expand. There's going to be different ways that the internet grows, but either way, there's only two networks that it runs off of, either payment network or data storage network. So if you just think of the internet in itself and how big it is, or how big YouTube is, or how big any of these social medias that are popular like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc., that is so much information that is constantly uploaded daily that the need is never ending. The amount of storage that's needed, the amount of security that's needed, it's never going to stop. So that's why when I kind of say that me having the mentality that Pac Global is going to be the end all, like this only solution, it doesn't like physically make sense to my own brain, because I know that the need is going to be never ending, and there's going to be so many different players that are going to have their own solutions for decentralized storage, but it needs to change. It needs to make its movement from centralized to decentralized, and you can see that slowly happening, just in different industries. Blockchains are the number one industry to notice that, just the different partnerships that they pull on, where these large companies that are centralized or have centralized aspects to them, like Google, et cetera, they're starting to partner with these different projects. So they're adding decentralization into their needs. And that's why people get excited whenever they hear Google partnership, because they know that Google has to continue to expand because they are a main contributor to the internet that we know and use today.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a good question that I think is important to answer. How does PAC compare in terms of the size of its network to other POS blockchain networks out there today?
The size of our network is pretty massive just in general, not just to POS, but to POW. Like if I want to add it to the list, because we're already up there. There are websites that you can look up the sizes of different networks and compare to see which one where they rank. Right now, the last time I checked, currently we were ranked third or fourth just in the entire blockchain um, cryptosphere. But that was only comparing masternode projects. Masternodes are just those servers that are collateralized. There are a lot of other projects that have full nodes as well, but they're not considered masternodes, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin has, if I remember correctly, the last time that I looked was like 9,000, 10,000, 11,000 full nodes. And just for comparison of that, Pac Global has only been around since 2018. Bitcoin's been around since 2009. So
Yeah.
the reason to grow Bitcoin's network is the same as Pax. It's just maybe not as easy to do or resource friendly, because it's such an I don't want to call it a dinosaur, but it's the first Bitcoin. It's the first blockchain, so it has the most information on it. It's the largest blockchain or one of the largest blockchains to support. So in comparison, we're doing pretty well. I mean, we're already up there as far as node count, and we're only 2.5 years into it. So our supply gives us room to grow, and we plan to.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, there's a lot of comments on the Twitter feed, just how excited people are. They're really showing their support, which is wonderful. I guess, maybe just before we sign off, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with us in the audience that you think is important?
The only thing that I would like to say is, as far as blockchain projects, and I can only speak for Pac Global. I do know that the community's involvement and just support in general, even when it seems hectic, even when the market seems terrible, if that's what people want to pay attention to, it's fine. Everyone understands it. But just the community support in general, really, we feed off that a lot. When it's negative, we sometimes start thinking negative as far as just, I don't want to say aura or whatever, but it just makes you feel negative as well. But when it's positive and you can see people, giving, good things to say or understanding as far as like 2020 being crazy as COVID and delaying things and causing different problems, whatever. Just over the years, having the community to support you really has helped us. It's allowed us to be able to bring people in from other communities because they'll look at what we have and say, hey, I like this, I like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. And, having that kind of feedback nonstop, it's almost like nonstop feedback is how I look at it. You'll get the supportive, you'll get the negative, but if you can find a median to where you can focus on both, that's why we've gotten to where we're at, because we're able to, build a team that's reliant on each other, that listens to, different concerns that come up from the community, and then it molds whatever we decide to build, whatever we decide to use the Pac Global Network for. IPFS for storage, I mean, that's something that didn't come from one person. It just came from, us seeing the needs, seeing what people talk about, seeing what people get concerned about, seeing the topics in the world, like for instance, the TikTok thing closing down, like that alone is a reason for us to go after what we did with IPFS. And so having that community around and chugging along with us through the ups and downs, that's all we could ask for.
Yeah, exactly. And now is the perfect time, I think. And yeah, I agree with you. It's like, we've got to stay positive. I've been writing about the industry for over 3 years now. I've seen the ups and downs, and I've heard people say, blockchain's over, crypto's over. Why are you still writing about it? But it's like, the true believers stay, and the people that spend time on their projects and innovate, it's like, those are the projects that are really, really interesting, especially that are making good use of blockchain as a technology.
Absolutely.
Which is why I'm excited for your project.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the projects and a lot of use cases don't really need market action for it to work. It will still work. Just that unfortunately, that's what a lot of people pay attention to, and which is fine. It's understandable, of course. But, it's just having those there that are through the thick and thin, regardless of whatever is happening. It's impressive for me.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, Drew, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure, and I'm excited to stay in touch with you and hear more. So thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
How great would it be to actually own your own data on a fully safeguarded platform? Well, that day has arrived. Pac Global is set to launch a revolutionary product that takes storage to a whole new level. According to Don Tapscott, author of Blockchain Revolution and the founder of the Blockchain Research Institute, there are two types of centralized networks: those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. Centralized networks store all of your personal data, including your date of birth and social security number, in a single or centralized location. The problem with this is that bad actors know where these locations are, and there is an endless quest to gain access to your data. Some of these networks include Visa, MasterCard, the credit rating agencies such as Experian and Equifax, Dropbox, and the Apple iCloud. These networks are interwoven into our daily lives, and unfortunately, we've all experienced our bank sending us a new debit or credit card because our data was compromised at a retail location. Recent examples of hacked centralized networks include Yahoo, with the largest data breach to date, the Apple iCloud, Facebook, Uber, and too many others to mention. The good news is that today is a new day. Your data will be yours again, extremely safe and significantly less expensive to store it than what you're used to paying. Pac Global will be launching their storage solution that leverages the power of blockchain, all on a decentralized massive global network. So the time is now to take back your data, all powered by Pac Global.